Hi, this is Sabin Bharti and we are here at Linode headquarters in Philadelphia, and today we have with us Alex Peña. You are R&D engineer at Linode. So there are a lot of things that we have to talk about, not just in terms of R&D itself.
Yes.
But you also have some announcements to make today.
Yes. We have our GPU Linodes coming online. We decided that, it's not just about x86 computing or regular Intel or AMD chips. We see a trend in the industry where people are wanting to do more parallelized workloads, which is a perfect use case for GPUs.
When we look at GPU, traditionally we look at gamers, but in modern times we look at machine learning workloads. We also look at a lot of you can talk like film production people, they use it, but you're talking about it running in the cloud. So what is the need of GPU in the cloud?
So there's so much that you can do with a GPU between TensorFlow, AI, deep learning, video processing. There's been a very large uptick of different markets and different people who need this type of technology to actually do their workload faster, essentially, or to do it at all in some cases. The Quadro RTX 6000 that we chose is a very well-rounded card for this. It actually has a higher peak precision for a higher single bit precision than what's currently on the market everywhere, which is the Tesla V100. There's a lot that goes into picking a GPU because the goal is not to essentially shoehorn one specific use case, but it's to make it so that it's something that everyone can use, right? Because if you're going after a very small or single market, not that AI or deep learning is a small market, it's quite large and growing very rapidly, but having something that's slightly more general that, that helps everybody is what we find to be far more beneficial. The card that we chose, for example, is one of the first line of cards to actually offer ray tracing. So people who are doing video editing or rasterization and stuff like that can take advantage of this card, and that's something that they can't do on any other platform because no one offers those types of cores.
So you're not targeting a specific workload. You are, depending on the customers, what they need are they can do. But what are the use cases that you are interested in, or you have optimized the GPUs for?
So a few things that we did. When we were physically building the machines, we were very, very cautious to make sure that we are not bottlenecking the bandwidth between the CPU and the RAID card. We wanted to make sure that we got the absolute most out of the actual physical hardware. The other thing that we did is we decided to have the Linodes that run these plans also be dedicated Linodes. So they're not sharing any type of core or anything like that. You don't have to worry about someone potentially approaching in on your CPU cores. You don't have to worry about noisy neighbor. We thought that was very, very important because the GPUs are expensive, and we expect what our customers expect, to have the highest performance for the price that they're paying.
When a customer runs an instance, are you giving them a dedicated GPU or you're virtualizing something there?
No, it is 100% dedicated, as is the CPU. Again, because of the cost of these things, we thought it was prudent to give people the full capabilities of specifically the GPU.
So tell us a bit of difference between the other offering that Linode has versus this one. Is it like pure bare metal offering, or what does it look like? Or mass?
I think it's probably somewhere in the middle. Because the GPU has no virtualization on top of it, we are essentially passing it directly to the guest or the Linode. It can have the full range of capabilities that you would expect to get in a bare metal box for these GPUs. And that was really important because, GPU compute is very expensive everywhere, and we thought, when we looked at it, honestly, we thought, well, we can do that better. or we can do that, for less expensive. And I think we did it. I think we were pretty well rounded. Obviously, we're always looking for feedback on how to make our products better. But we thought that this was a good jumping off point.
So are you working with NVIDIA as well on this, or are you just like buying the cards and doing all the optimization yourself?
We have had several conversations with them to essentially help pick the card. We realized early on that we were doing something that was unconventional, I guess, in our space. When you look at other providers, they're predominantly using the Tesla line of cards, and there's nothing wrong with that. We typically try to run something newer. So the Turing architecture, which is what the NVIDIA RTX cards are based out of, is their latest architecture, which has some downsides, of course, but for the most part, from the research that we've done, it's a very large improvement from the previous generation. Again, all depending on your workload, put a little caveat there. But from the performance that we've seen out of these cards, it's pretty great, which we were impressed with. So plus, given the fact that you're giving 24 gigs of RAM on each GPU allows you to do quite a bit on the GPU itself without having to front load it, essentially.
How does scaling work, because you are offering dedicated cards there? And what does your offering look like globally, because you cannot just ship the card everywhere around the globe? And so can you talk about that a bit?
Sure. So we're doing this as a pilot. Essentially, we want to make sure that the product that we deploy everywhere is going to be accepted, or is what people are looking for. This is a whole new territory for Linode. So obviously, again, they're very expensive, just the cards alone. So we wanted to make sure that we got it right. So one of the ways to do that was to offer it in a limited capacity and obtain feedback from people who are actually using these, and then iterate on it going forward. We think we did pretty well, but again, always looking for the feedback.
Right. So this is right now in the pilot or beta phase, and have you handpicked some customers, or how does the project work? So
it is a pilot phase. We are essentially making it GA. So we thought that was a good idea because it opens it up to everybody. There is a notification list that we have. So again, there are limited spots. So for people like to be notified.
How many spots are there?
So it's done because we're giving the card directly. We actually have 20 spaces available. It's quite limited.
Mm-hmm. Is it just for US or globally?
You can get to them globally, but they are in Newark.
Okay, so data center. Okay.
So the data center that's in Newark. Mm-hmm. But it was interesting because when we put them in, obviously GPUs consume a lot of power. But when you put so many in a box and put so many boxes into a single cabinet, it was quite a lot. It was quite a lot of power, and I was surprised, kind of. But we think we did it pretty well. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, I guess time will tell.
So is there any downtime? Will you be Bitcoin mining?
I think Bitcoin has.
They've gone out of the phase already.
Yeah, I think it's, at this point in time, I think unless you can afford an ASIC and the power to run it, Bitcoin mining is probably not going to be a good use case for this.
Right. So since they are based on one of the data centers, what are the challenges that in terms of latency are there, or what do you think are the biggest challenge for the customers, or what are the bottlenecks there, and how do you plan to overcome those?
I think the biggest bottleneck that we're going to see is the demand. Mm-hmm. Is because of the limited quantity that we have, and I have two theories. Either one, people are going to spin it up and run the workload on it and then destroy, and it'll be a constant churn. Or the other one, because of the price point, and when you look at the price point and compare it to everyone else, people are going to get one and then sit on it until they need to run their workloads. because of when you compare us to every other provider of these things, of GPUs, we're incredibly aggressive. It's really one of the biggest things is to make sure that the market adopts us as a provider of these services. I think that's one of the biggest things is, could we deploy it all over the world? Absolutely. And that is eventually the plan, especially with some of our new data centers coming down the line. We realize that bandwidth can get very expensive for some people. So if we can offer people a way to do their AI, their video transcoding, and all of that in the country where their data is being created, it saves quite a bit on the bandwidth that someone would have to, do to move it from one country to another.
You have mentioned a couple of times, it's expensive, how expensive it is, and since you're offering a service, so it should not price the same price that I have to go and buy a GPU for, right?
Correct. I would compare it to be a lot less expensive than our competitors, and I would even say that for most use cases, it's probably a lot less expensive than going out and purchasing one. We decided to make it very, very simple as far as pricing, like we do with all of our pricing. So it's essentially $1,000 per CPU per month, or per GPU per month. Current offerings range up to 4 GPUs, so you can have a single Linode with 4 GPUs, and that's $4,000. We made sure to look at some of our other competitors that are doing this, and the resources that they're offering, the RAM, what CPU they're using, what GPU they're using, and we feel like we're pretty competitive. One of the biggest hurdles that I think we have to do is to educate people. Nvidia does a great job with their marketing, of course, but these cards are fairly new. They haven't been on the market very long. So when you compare it to something like a Tesla V100, its peak single point precision is higher on the cards we chose than what's available, or a Tesla V100, which I believe they would, Nvidia would probably consider towards the top end of their line, or the very top, depending. And we saw that and we were like, that's pretty great. But that card's been out for a few years now. And we wanted to offer something a little newer and hopefully a little faster.
You have mentioned competitors also a couple of times. I don't know if you want to mention or name them or not, but who do you first of all consider your competitor, like Google, AWS, or whoever else is there? And if you do compete with them, they just don't offer, CPU and GPU. They also offer a lot of, services with them as well. So how do you really plan to compete with them beyond the GPU?
So I think, barring all, is price. We are, in my opinion, far more competitive on a pricing standpoint than they are. Now, we are obviously working, we see all of the services and features that they have, and they're great, but there are always going to be people like yourself who want to manage their server themselves, or who want to know what that kernel is that they're using and patch that, or deploy the latest cutting edge kernel, which you can do. I think one of the biggest differentiators for us is we offer an amazing support for our products. Support is actually the largest department at Linode. It's very easy to lose what I lovingly call a soul for a company. You can create something and make a ton of money with it. But the important thing is that the people using it still get the support that they think they should be getting. You know, when you call Linode, you're not getting it's not press 1 for this or press 2 for this or 3 for this.
It's all AI driven, right? All machine learning and AI and robots sitting there. Well, you're getting a GPU and you're getting a lot of machine learning capabilities, so most probably in future all the support will be driven by AI. I have been a customer for 4 or 5 years, and I never had to call your support. Only once when some malware happened and one of my servers went down, so I have to migrate it. But other than that, the service itself was so good that I never had to. That's when
that's great.
Exactly.
That's a great thing.
So, but beyond support also. Pricing, you mentioned me. So what kind of customers you're looking at when you look at this? Because there are a lot of people who run something as a workload on AWS or whatever it is, and for some customer this is the workload. The building the whole AI machine learning. So they don't want to abstract everything. They actually want access to that, as you mentioned, kernel. So this whole setup is a workload for them. They are tweaking it, defining it. So can you talk about because I just want to understand why, or who you're looking at when you compare with those.
I think a few of the people that we're looking at is obviously video processing. That's something that I feel may not have gotten as much love as it should be. In our opinion, it's a growing market. AI and deep learning, obviously, there's a ton of amazing work that has been or is being done in those cases or in that vertical. I think the other biggest thing is, there's a ton of startups that want to get into, that space, who want to run, an AI or deep learning or some neural network. And sometimes they're cost prohibited. Right? A startup doesn't always have a bajillion dollars to go throw at hardware and then the expertise necessary to put it into a rack in a data center and then coloing it and providing bandwidth. So we wanted to get as close to that as humanly possible. And I think we did pretty well. The amount of bandwidth that these boxes have inside of them and, in networking alone is quite immense. The amount of RAM that we're giving for the resources on the card is quite large as well. So I think giving it as kind of a stepping stone so they can start doing the things that they want to do, whether it's train a model or render a few frames of a video or whatever the case may be. I think that's really what we're looking and who we're looking to attract is someone who doesn't necessarily need it all the time or may need it all of the time. It's supposed to be for general purpose. And really from what we've seen with people's workloads and just, the people that we spoke to, people's range quite a bit. There are people who are running, instead of running, FP64, they're running FP32, and then you have 16. We've even seen a few trends or a few people who want to do int 8 and int 4 for their machine learning, and I'm like, whoa, that's quite a bit there. And this card that we chose supports all of those, and it's one of the reasons why we thought that it would be a good idea to get into this space. We see how others are doing it, and we say, they're good offerings, but we just think we can do it a little better.
We have so far talked only about the hardware part, but software is a critical piece of whatever Linode offers.
Yep.
So when you talk about, video editing workloads, you need software to stack as well. Microsoft is working on virtual desktops as well, where you can run the whole Windows in the cloud and you can just, access the whole, and you can do all. So what kind of software stack will you be offering with GPU so people can run whatever workload, or I have to bring my own software stack with me?
Much like the rest of our offerings, it's very open to what you want it to.
So can I get the virtual Windows desktop already there?
No. That is one thing that we don't currently offer is a virtual Windows machine. Not saying that it's not possible. And I'm not saying that there won't come a point in time where, we decide to go down that route. But as far as right now, it's not something that we offer.
But it's new also, depending on what customers will demand. And like if there are 5 people like me who are like, hey, when can I get my video editing? So you'll just, address those, because it's not an easy kind of, it's a tricky market.
Yes, and that's one of the reasons why there is such a limited quantity, right? There's a pilot for a reason. We want to know what people are expecting in this. We want to get feedback from the people who are actually using these and then adjust accordingly. One of the benefits that I think of Linode is that we have what I like to call the ability to turn on a dime or pivot. If something isn't working, we just change it. We don't have the same, I'm going to lovingly call it red tape, that other companies necessarily have to go through, which allows us to be far more nimble when getting product to market. So.
Right. So that means I should share this with my friends who are doing a lot of video production, so you get a demand for that. Now, if they do want to reach you, what is the best way to get on this list?
So we decided to make it GA. So as long as you have a Linode account, you will be able to access these GPUs. The only hurdle that may happen is there may be some additional verification that needs to happen. But after that, we've decided not to set up a waiting list per se. We do have a notification list. So as more availability comes into our data centers, we will send out emails and things like that when they're coming and when you can expect them and what facilities they're going to be in. But right now, create a Linode or create a Linode account and try to deploy one. If you can, it'll ask you to actually open a support ticket for additional verification. Once that is done, you can deploy it again or reattempt to deploy it. Again, space is limited, so it may or may not get it, again, because of the limited avail, but it should allow you to spin up a GPU instance, if you will, without anything, no lists, no, hey, do I have to click this link to do this thing and then put all of my information and then wait to hear back. It is GA. So anyone with a Linode account should be able to create one as long as there's spaces available.
Right, and Linode account is free. You have to pay when you buy.
Correct.
Okay, awesome. Alex, thank you so much for talking today. And I actually look forward to testing this GPU myself.
Good.
So once again, thank you.
Thank you.